What is going on, everybody? We got week 6 in the NFL, aka one final week for people such as me who drafted Rashee Rice in every single league. I didn't care. I don't care what people said. No, he's getting drafted in every single league. So this is my last week until I get to enjoy him on multiple fronts. You know, this is the type of thing, I don't even want to say, you wait for someone 6 weeks and then he just kind of like pulls his hamstring on his first route. That happens all the time, but I don't want to get ahead of myself just yet because that's week 7. We're here, week 6. Dave, before we even get into anything football related, let's kind of just rehash a quick convo we just had. This is something that probably Dave has to deal with a little bit more than me because I can really just kind of lean towards my performing that I've done. And I've done some stand-up comedy. I do videos for different companies and I can kind of phrase it like that. Dave's a little bit different. So Dave was talking to me about when he sees people out. The classic question, what do you do? What do you do? Everyone needs to know, what do you do? I go home and I take big shits every single day. That's what I do. I'll never forget when I was interning at NBC, somebody was just venting. And he was just like, that's what I tell people. I said, a girl, I go out with there, and I'm just an impressionable, 20-year-old at the time. He goes, anytime somebody asks me, you say, I go home and I take big shits. I'll never forget that. That was a real story in 30 Rockefeller Plaza. Anyway, what to tell people when you're in this industry, because it's all about phraseology. I don't know who you are out there. I don't know what industry you're in, but it's easy for you to say, like, oh, I work in the IT department at Mac or whatever. And by the way, I know that's none of you out there. However, there are many jobs out there that are really easy to lay out there. But it's all a matter of phrasing, because somebody who's very, very anti-sports betting, they just go, oh, that's gambling. It's gambling. They're gamblers and drug runners. It all depends on how you phrase it. So Dave, what exactly, when you're out there doing whatever, with your family or even out with your friends, that guy outside the golf course and he wants to see if you're a potential business relationship, how are you relaying what you do to him?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways you got to do it. So I'd mentioned to you before we hit record, it's a shit we should have just been recording. We should just hit record at the jump and you can cut everything from now on.
Yeah.
My wife and I went to an early dinner. Her parents watched the girls for us. And there's this nice little rooftop bar around us. We're out there and, there's table seating, high top seating and everything. But then there's also like a little lounge area that you can have a drink in. And she was sitting on one of the couches. I was next to her, but on the other small one. And this guy comes up with his daughter, his grown daughter, and they had other people that they knew who were sitting near us as well. So my wife, being the courteous person she is, I didn't even notice it, was like, oh, here, take my seat. And as she gets up, I looked at him. I said, my next beer's on you. I'm joking, but when he got his next beer, he was drinking white wine, as a matter of fact. But when he ordered, like the button-down sweater, you're right, very, very nice guy. But when he did it, he ordered.
You ever do that, by the way, when you're about to say something about a friend? Yeah, it's like, look, we all know and love the guy, but he smells like shit.
Yep, my friends hammer me for that because I go, good guy. But, but in all seriousness, super likable guy. I'm just trying to give you a visual of what what he looks like. Like when I said my next beer is on you, he's kind of like, oh, okay. No problem. Anyway, he ordered me a beer. Ends up being a great guy. We start talking. I told you, his wife is a nurse and knew my dad passed in 18, but she knew him and worked with him. He was a doctor at the same hospital. So we get to talking and he finally comes up. He goes, well, what do you do? And I go, all right, here we go. And I say, this is what I tell everybody. I go, I'm in sports gaming. They say, what's that? I go, well, I work in content sales and marketing, but essentially it's a subscription-driven service where we provide data-driven analysis to prospective subscribers, along with a lot of free content as well. Typically, they just go, oh, and they're done, right? It's over. But when they pry further, here's the funny thing. This is when I actually enjoy the conversation. If they want to know more, then it gets good. But that right there, that is the barometer, right? That is, they want nothing to do with this conversation and good because I've made it as convoluted as possible, or they want to know more and they'll actually enjoy what I do. There's never an in-between, Andy. As a matter of fact, Ben Rasa, who we both know, good guy. His barber now for like 7 years has thought that he's an accountant. So, so, so come like March, he starts asking Ben questions about his taxes, and Ben just answers them. So, yeah, this is a real thing. I don't know if he wants me telling people this. I hope his barber doesn't watch
I'm going to tell him something. We all have to understand things in life. If somebody looks at me and they're like, what is this guy run a cannoli stand? There's nothing I can do, you know? Olive complexion, big nose. That's just, yeah, I can't get mad at somebody.
Ben looks like an accountant.
Yeah. When he gives picks even,
yeah.
He does the smart guy thing where they adjust their glasses before something. I always notice people at work. That's like the when someone adjusts their glasses, oh, something very intelligent's just about to come out of this guy's mouth. So you can't get mad at him. And the way he delivers it too, it's in such an informationally structured and coherent manner. The opposite of the way you would hear things from me. So I can't really get mad at that. But where I love people like him and Greg earlier when I was commenting about that clip that you guys uploaded, they're stone cold, like no sell on the deliveries. You wouldn't know that somebody's about to get uppercut with one of their kind of jokes. And both of them are so hysterical with that. And yeah, I know. Well, you know what you should do? If they pry further, you say, all right, look, you want to know more? And then you should actually tell them where to go. How about this for a transition? Where do you go for your tail stuff?
That's actually, solid. Head over. You got the link in the description posted for me. Appreciate it as always. All of my bets free all year. A lot of other great people over there as well. We just added AI mapping, Andy. So now like you could just post a screenshot of the parlay and it'll map it so you can just tail it with one click, shop the books you want, boom, you're in. I have a nice little giveaway going on over there as well. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's really cool. I have a DFS giveaway happening over there too for the NFL Spy coming up this week. So
this world's getting weird, man. It's getting weird. I saw Martin Luther King Jr. get eliminated from the Royal Rumble. Like they're making clips where, Stephen Hawking is getting tombstoned by The Undertaker, and it really looks like it was from an old Monday Night Raw episode. Things are getting a little weird out there. Something crazy is going to happen where it's like, okay, we need to come up with some parameters. But until then, just throw your ticket.
There's a story that just came out. I don't know if it's true, but I saw multiple YouTube videos that had over 1 million views, so it must be, that had said, like, an AI tried to kill somebody because it tried to shut him down last week. So dig into that one. Yeah, it's getting wild. Well, but you got to do it. You got to keep up or you're going to fall behind, man. That's the sad part. I got 2 young girls. I got a 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. I'm looking at this going, shit, did I make a mistake? You know? It's crazy.
Hey, just like bets, don't think about the losses. All right, will some of those wins in there. So why don't we move towards there? And I do want to say something. I know when we put out these videos, many times I try to do it as early as possible. Also, not just for you guys to have the most amount of time to watch it. It is the most ideal time for me, with hockey and everything. Wednesdays is usually when we film. So there aren't a ton of props available. I know, if this was later in the week, we'd be cranking through picks, but there are only so many available. So I'm going to do things where, as we talk about these games, there's going to be something. When I look at that game, I just like that. We just don't know what the line is yet. So I'm going to ask Dave, like, hey, Dave, I like this. What do you think the line will be? By the time I edit it, many times the line will be out. So by the time you guys watch, usually the line's available. So hopefully I'll talk about a prop, ask Dave what he thinks a good number is, then I'll be able to add that in. Who knows? Maybe one's on the screen right now. Probably not. But there are a few that I kind of thought about. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about not just Rashee Rice, but those Chiefs who, I don't know. I know you saw the stat about the 1-score games. I'm sure you saw that. They were undefeated last year, something like 10-0 in 1-score games. Now they're 0-3 in 1-score games. Regardless, they have a game this week against the Detroit Lions. And I bring that game up because it's the perfect kind of game to talk about where it has many people confused. I love how former NFL players can be confused when they see a line like this because I don't know. I feel like we see things like this all the time. We see something that doesn't look normal, and then we're like, okay. I mean, this kind of one of the main premises of this show. We pull up the donkey charts. We'll show you what happened last week. And then we're like, of course, they're trying to get you to think this, that, and the other. So we have a Detroit Lions team who are 2.5-point underdogs on the road at Kansas City. And people are saying, my God, you're talking about a 2-win team going up against this Lions team who looks unbeatable since they lost. They're just, crushing everybody. And as you see here, Will Compton is just completely shocked. What am I missing? Didn't you play in the league? Didn't you see how many unbelievable rats there were every single week? So something like this is kind of, dumbfounding to me. However, what are we thinking here? Chiefs, Lions. I typically don't. I got to love that. I ask you a question, then answer it myself. I typically don't bet spreads for the most part, but this is actually one where I like this just as much as I do a player prop. I don't fall for what happened lately. To me, I see a Kansas City Chiefs team whose offense looked miserable for years and finally looks above good, looks very good.
Yeah.
Bitter after a loss, coming home where if this was a couple weeks ago, everybody's saying, oh, come on, Goff on the road. No, we understand at home in Detroit, but think about the narratives after week 1. They're going to Kansas City, and I still think Kansas City wants revenge on them from after they won the Super Bowl, and Detroit was able to beat them late on opening night in Kansas City. I really like Kansas City to bounce back and win this game.
I'm with you, man. If they don't, they fall to 2-4. And when you consider the implications there, in recent seasons, it wouldn't have meant anything, right? It's like, all right, well, Brandon Staley will find a way to lose it for the Chargers on the final drive of the game. The Broncos are no good yet, right? But then last year, you get Jim Harbaugh, you get Bo Nix, and now you're seeing it this year. Both the Broncos and Chargers have a very winnable game, each of them this week. Both of them sizable favorites. They could go to 4-2. The Chiefs actually could find themselves in a legitimate hole if they lost this game. I talked about it on my picks for every game video over on the Odd Shopper channel too, Andy, yesterday. And I like the Chiefs. I liked them last week. I liked them on Monday too. And I had a parlay lose on the final drive for the Jaguars. Was under on Brian Thomas, big reception. And then I had Chiefs -3. And of course, they end up losing. But those were self-inflicted wounds. If you look at
you went in with the Dans. You were right there with Dan.
No. The self-inflicted wounds were on the Chiefs themselves. I made the right bet, of course.
Well, we've never made a bad bet in our lives. It's the world congregating all in some sort of, coordination, perfect storm style to make us lose.
At least I'm not memory holding the losses, right? That's all you can ask for. What I'm saying, though, is if you go look at the difference in penalties in that game, it'll blow your mind, man. The Kansas City Chiefs had 13 penalties for 109 yards. The Jags had 4 for 25. They played a more disciplined game, no doubt, but there were so many instances where it's like, what are you doing? The Chiefs should have won that game. I'm not talking about like, I should have won that bet. What I'm saying is the Chiefs had every opportunity to win that game. And then that drop in the bucket by Lawrence to Brian Thomas in like tight coverage. Lawrence played a great game. They deserved it. But I don't take away from that game that the Kansas City Chiefs are terrible. What I take away is they had some bad penalties. They'll clean it up. And the Jags are actually a pretty good team. Devin Lloyd, that guy's he has like two takeaways every single game. They're just playing good football right now.
I'll say that you say they deserve it. I'm not willing to go that far. I don't think they played well enough to deserve the win. I mean, it's like,
well, they were disciplined.
A lot of between the calls and then kind of these plays that ended up going there, like, something like Lawrence falling twice, him throwing a couple awful balls, and then without that pick six that goes the whole way. I mean, in a weird way, I felt like Kansas City was controlling the entire game. But that's what happens. I mean, primetime rats, it's never going to surprise you or I will tell you that. But I don't blame you, because there are some where you're just like, everybody who bet on the Lions, who we talked about last week, 90%, it was the first time we saw it all year. They ended up fine. Every once in a while, that will be the case.
Yep.
But just like you see on your screen right now, that's the pH balance that I always talk about. Not enough favorites, not enough rats. I know most of you are dirty, filthy parlay pirates, and many of these teams were on your parlay card, which means your parlay card's burned. Look at some of those losses. Look at some of those wins. So that was what? The top, is that 8 or 7? 3 wins, 4 losses. It's just it's a brutal style of betting on these games, in my opinion. I mean, if it's for fun, rip those money lines, rip those spreads all you want. If it's for an office pool, absolutely. But, I told everybody to enjoy last year. It was the year of the Dan. Worst year for sports books in God knows how long. But, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like this is way closer to the year of the Dave. And we'll see kind of where we go from here. You just mentioned that division, and it was something that I wanted to bring up because we talked about those divisions a little bit. How are we feeling in terms of the odds for these 3 teams? Because it bothers me that the Chargers are kind of defaulting back to they can kind of lose any game when, it's like you felt like, okay, they're just going to rip a bunch of games. It's going to be one of these 3-loss Harbaugh teams. And now all of a sudden they're just dropping games. What's going on here?
Their offensive line's in trouble, man. Like, you lose Slater before the season even starts. Joe Alt is out. That's a big one. They lost Mekhi Becton, who hasn't been good in run blocking, but he's been a decent pass protector. Came over from Philly last year after Jeff Stoutland kind of revived his career. After, of course, you draft a guy early on the Jets and it doesn't work out. But this one is. I actually think these odds look good. The Raiders plus 6,500. What a disaster. Geno is 6-9 touchdown to interception ratio this year. Guy's just been awful. I don't have a lean heavily anywhere. Like, I honestly think that this will be a true 3-horse race throughout the remainder of the season. Now, you get Rashee Rice back. That makes a huge difference for sure.
Oh.
So if I'm doing anything, I'm probably still betting the Chiefs. And I thought you mentioned something interesting, and I'm not betting them, by the way, but if I, metaphorical gun to the head, you mentioned something interesting when you said that, like, last year, none of this happened. The 1-score games, they won them all. This year, it didn't. I remember talking about it early this year and last year as well, even going into the Super Bowl. And with so many of those games, they didn't just win 1-score games. They won 1-score games in the flukiest of fashion, right? You had, like, the Raiders fumbling the snap when they were in chip shot range. Chiefs recover. You had the Broncos 1 play away from beating the Chiefs, blocked field goal, right? And that's just 2 off the top of my head. Like, the Panthers came very close, 1 play away from beating them. The list goes on and on. Oh, to start the season, Isaiah Likely's foot on the back of the end zone. Remember just the heel, the tiny sliver of his heel on the back of the end zone? That's another could-be loss. It just so happens this year, all of those narrow wins that went their way last season aren't going their way. The funny thing to me, though, is they're not really a different team. As a matter of fact, when they get Rashee Rice back, they're probably a better team than they were last year. So that's just something to consider.
Yeah, if I had to pick a team here, I really like the Chiefs. The Chiefs thing is they had one loss all of last year with no offense. So the defense is still good. They'll be fine towards the end of the year. You're seeing this offense really start to get humming. And I talked about theoretical bets. One of the bets that I really liked on Monday night, I said that Brashard Smith is turning into a version of how McKinnon was used in that offense. I talked about it last week, how they're using Worthy in motion a lot to kind of spread the defense. They're putting a lot of these design short screens to Brashard Smith, and he has, like, punt returner, lightning type speed. And his receiving prop last week, it, like, opened up at like 9.5. I think maybe people bet it up to about 11.5. What's a good number for it this week? If I'm excited to bet it again, what's a good number for Brashard Smith this week in a game at home where they're going to want to score as many points as possible against the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, Greg and I on our DFS show talked about him extensively as well. Just like, hey, this could be a guy they want to get more involved. It's tough because, I mean, he played 6 snaps last week.
But that says a lot. That, to my point, the plays that he's in there, it's almost always a designed reception.
Sure, they're using him. They are. Also, the guy's a burner on the kick returns. That one that got called back was a damn shame. But he has flash. Like, there was that one play where he, I don't know what the route was, but you saw him cutting across. Mahomes hit him in stride. And you're like, damn, he picked up an easy 12 yards on that. Like,
yeah, he's got I don't want to say it, but he's got a version of one of your favorite guys, that H-hand burst. Like, he's small, skinny, and when he catches a reception, he just starts flying. So I understand, like, they really need to get Kareem Hunt out of that backfield just because I don't even know what he's doing.
He had he had a big 40-yard run last game, so shot the hell out of me.
I know, and yes, when there's a wide open lane, he'll be able to stumble and bumble, or fine, even if it's get rid of Pacheco, but Pacheco still, at least when there's a hole, he can actually get a decent amount of yards. But Kareem Hunt looks like a fullback running out there, and then I feel like that will get. I mean, Brashard Smith should be out there for 2-minute drills or when they need to get up the field. I'm willing to go up to. I'm a little scared to say 14. You know what? I think I'm only good at around 12 and a half, 13 and a half receiving. I think that's what
I think he was at 22 and a half rushing plus receiving last week. How many touches did he end up having?
I don't have confidence that he will get more than 1 carry per game. So I personally would never take that.
Just go receiving. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I think maybe he had 1 rush.
I mean, I guess you're right. It'd be just wiser to go with receiving here. What did he do last week? So he had 4 rushing attempts. No, I'm sorry. He had 1 rush. You're right. He had 4 the week before in a blowout. He had 3 targets in back-to-back games, though. If you're getting that at 11 and a half, 12 and a half, maybe 14 and a half, you might. But considering he played so few snaps, I'd be on board, yeah. Also, you got to get creative against a team like Detroit, and Detroit's going to score points. So there's that as well. Like, this is a 52.5 point total. The more I think about it, even though he played fewer snaps, given how high this total is compared to Monday night, you're probably going to see like 15 and a half on receiving yards for Brashard Smith.
Also, very unlikely that he took his targets and gained a lot with them, and he sees fewer snaps, less games. Like he's doing a lot with the little work that he is getting. So I showed you last week. It was a bloodbath for the Dans 2 weeks ago. Not great for him last week. So now let's take a quick look. The week 6 donkey charts, and we start up top. If you have a prime time win on the road at Buffalo with the country watching and everybody praising that, the Patriots are back, Drake May's the next it quarterback, you're going to see them at the top of the charts here. 81% of the bets coming in on the Patriots at -3.
Yeah. I bet the Saints already at +3.5.
And how do you feel about it? Do you have better's remorse?
No, I like those type of games, man. Look, betting, number one, you should enjoy yourself, like take some shots. But I think this is just kind of how I bet, though, and not everyone has to do this. I like selling high on certain teams, and you have a Patriots team. I bet the Patriots last week against the Bills. So this is nothing against the Patriots. I think they're a pretty good football team, to be honest with you. Like, I like Drake May. Stephon Diggs, back-to-back 100-yard games. He appears to be reemerging. Christian Gonzalez is back. The run defense, the defense in general looks good. They can create some takeaways. I like them. But I just like betting against teams like this when they have these type of games. I mean, I'm not going to say that was their Super Bowl, but that is a massive win for the New England Patriots. Not only against the divisional opponent, but against the Bills in Buffalo, and you win outright as 8.5 point dogs. That's a big deal, man. Now, this isn't to say Vrabel can't get them right for the next game, but the Saints aren't that bad. Like they're not good, but they're not bad either. And they do have pieces. You have Kamara. Their offensive line has been fine. Rashid Shaheed's a burner. Chris Olave's fine. And their defense, while you don't have like a ton of star-studded names, they're fine. So yeah, at home, I don't mind them if you can still get the plus 3.5. So I got plus 3.5 at I think minus 105, and now you're seeing it move down to 3.
You're gonna get. Oh, is that the wink? By the way, when you see it, everyone's taking the team who's favored, and yet somehow it's moonwalking closer to them.
It doesn't. I mean, it's not 100% accuracy rate, but when you start seeing stuff like that, 81% of bets on the Patriots. However, the line, instead of moving from 3.5 to 4.5 or 4, moved from 3.5 to 3. I think that's, if nothing else, like your antenna should go up.
1,000%. And I mean, it's just the definition of a quote unquote letdown spot. It's a short week letdown spot after you beat a division rival. And one guy that I'll bring up, a name there's nothing better than just repeatedly bringing up these random names that a casual fan's like, who? I don't even know who that guy is. And it's our guy, Kendre Miller, who, you brought him out. You brought him to the dance this year. We talked about him a little bit last year on the Thursday night game, the legendary Thursday game where we had both backup running backs. But you brought up Kendre Miller. Ever since you brought him up, his rushing attempts have gone up, and last week was the first week he had more rushing attempts than Alvin Kamara, and that was in a win. So could we be looking at the type of situation where it's like, okay, Kamara's now defaulting to more of kind of what he should be at 30, more of kind of the receiving back out of the backfield, and he's never going to get like 20 carries again because they just realize, as the previous coaching staff and everybody, he's not an in-between the tackles runner for the full year at the age of 30. So they're using Kendre Miller, who's been good, a lot of broken tackles, any sort of Kendre Miller weasel opportunities if they release a low number here.
Yeah, but I don't think they will. I mean, so 2 weeks ago when we laddered it, we got 40 plus at plus 425, right? That's like, I mean, now he's probably going to be at like 30 on the standard line. So that's what makes it difficult. All the signs were there. It's just you want to be early for those things as opposed to late. And I think we can find some spots to do that for sure. If we can't do it now, given that we don't have a ton of props, I know you have your videos and you typically unearth some gems. I'll post mine over on Tails. But yeah, it's those type of spots, Andy, like it goes a long way for you because then you don't have to chase it week over week, right? That's why the ladders are fun. If you think you're early somewhere, get paid off right. Don't just bet the 1 unit on the standard line. But no, there's a lot of reasons why Kendre Miller could be good. And it appears that Alvin Kamara has not been both effective in the run game, but also, do they look to trade him? Like, do they look to trade him and they're trying to keep a little mileage off this season? I think that's a realistic possibility as well.
So I'm looking down towards the bottom of this list. 72% on the Chargers, minus 4.5. I just mentioned, they lost a couple players. You mentioned they lost a couple they lost a couple games. You mentioned they lost a couple offensive linemen. When you were breaking down your, game by game video, where did you fall on that Chargers side of things?
I said I leaned Chargers only because the Miami pass rush and defense is abysmal, man. Like, take PFF for whatever it's worth, but they're ranked dead last in pass rush right now through the first 5 weeks. They are 28th in run defense. They are 31st in coverage. Again, this is not the Bible when it comes to this stuff, but we've watched these games. Rico Dowdle just rushed for 200 yards on 23 carries. He averaged over 9 yards per attempt against Miami. It's a bad defense, a really bad defense. And you also have the fact that Amarian Hampton's on the IR. Joe Alt might not return. Mekhi Becton's going to be back, but his arm's going to be in a cast, I think he said. So there are some concerns for sure. And I don't love betting against Miami when they're at home. The thing I keep coming back to, though, is they can't really run the ball that efficiently right now. Chargers still have a good enough run defense and a good enough defense overall. And losing Tyreek Hill neuters that offense on top of everything. Like,
Big
yes,
time.
Darren Waller's looked awesome and it's fun to see him back, but Jaylen Waddle can't function as a week in, week out, like 12 target alpha receiver. So I would lean Chargers here. But I don't love the Chargers in this spot at all. I didn't bet it.
So obviously there are the concerns with the offensive line, but this is a team that is not able to get to the quarterback as much. They lost Amari and Hampton, and now they're doing this, Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal, who they don't like either. These are special teamers. And this was one of the pass happiest teams in the first couple weeks of the year when they're going up against a team who potentially can exploit the current offensive line deficiencies. I'm going to bring up something that has been brought up many times because now we're looking at like all three guys hovering in the same area against one of the worst defenses in the league. Do you see some opportunities? And now I'm not going to say a name because we've talked about old Laddie McConkey. Who we looking at here? Do any of these entice you? All three Chargers receivers sitting in the 50s. One thing I know is, when you see Quentin Johnston catch passes, it's usually not by the line of scrimmage. So if he's catching them, I feel like he's usually going over that 55.
Maybe there's a unique way to bet this from like just a parlay standpoint. I'm trying to think if there is, because between McConkey, Allen, and Johnston, we're seeing every week. It doesn't really matter. Like, I'm not in the business of trying to figure out which one of these guys it's going to be, particularly against a defense that is weak everywhere. Maybe the bet is just take the over on Justin Herbert passing yards, but the offensive line is banged up. It's a really weird spot, Andy, and you understand the DFS game as well. Like, I'm going to have to get to some Herbert with some double stacks this week. But that's different than betting them just to, like 1 unit on Keenan Allen overs. In this case, like when you're playing defense, you're playing to win a lot of money up top. So, you're more willing to take those type of chances. How do you really differentiate any of these three guys right now? You can see on the screen, there's nothing to differentiate at all.
Well, then I think we should move on to a different game. Steelers are coming off of a bye week. They're sitting at the top of their division. And if you look at their division, despite the fact that
crazy,
they have a multiple game lead over everybody in the division, the Baltimore Ravens, who we don't know Lamar's status this week, then they're going on bye. We don't know how things are going to pan out for them. They have a god-awful defense, yet they are still favored to win the division. And I know nobody's ever excited for plus 115, but if you didn't take it last week, I don't mind if you take it this week. Just if you think that there's a major mistake there. Do you think there is, or do you think this is right? Is Lamar going to come back to start ripping a bunch of wins?
Well, it's not the Bengals, who are starting Joe Flacco this week, by the way, which is just wild. It's not the Browns. On Monday, after week 5, the pertinent games to this division, the Ravens were minus money still to win the division. I said to Greg Ehrenberg on a show last week, I was like, I want the Ravens to lose this game so then I can get them at significant plus money to win the division. And then Monday comes around, he's like, yo, have you looked at those odds? They're still favored to win the division. And I couldn't believe it. So, no, I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are the real deal, first of all. And the Ravens, I don't know how long Lamar is going to be out, and this defense is in shambles. I'm just staying away from it. I thought there would be an opportunity on the Ravens this week. There isn't. And I told people last week who watch any of this stuff we do that if you want the Steelers, you should be betting them now because, they're just it's just going to get shorter and shorter odds on the Steelers. But both of those would have been incorrect. Like, it's pretty crazy, man.
It's unlikely that, if they're going to lose this weekend, it's going to be against Dylan Gabriel and that version of the Browns. And they used their new starter trick, and it didn't even pull out a win for them. They came relatively close, but
real close.
he looks like a backup. He plays like a backup. And the way the Steelers defense kind of got rolling in that last game with the turnovers, I know they still gave up yards. This looks like the kind of game that they'll be able to feast, even if they don't cover the spread. And I bring that up because there is something that I always bring up to you. I brought it up week 1. I guess this is my guy that I'm just going to keep bringing up. He got well, I don't know if he was injured, but he was a late scratch before that last game started overseas. That was Jaylen Warren. They had his receiving yards set to about 20, it was 21 and a half or 20 and a half. So Gainwell, just right in his position where now you knew he was going to be out there catching passes, he caught over, I think he caught like 25, 26 receiving yards. So now with Warren potentially being back in there, are we now scared because Gainwell played so well? Is he now back to a 50-50 split? Because I always want to take these Warren receiving yards. And we don't know what they are, but I'm basically asking you, what do you think a good number would be for Warren?
Man, it's funny you said that. I've voiced the exact same concerns this morning that like Arthur Smith is a stubborn guy. And he already clearly didn't want to give Jaylen Warren all the work. And then Kenny Gainwell goes out there, has 99 rushing yards, and catches like, what was it, 5 for 27 or something, whatever it was. I'm legitimately worried that, yeah, Jaylen Warren will now cede more work to Kenny Gainwell after he looked really good in London. That's I don't like it. If we're getting like, the question is, do you bet the under if it's still as inflated as it was 2 weeks ago, right? Because when you and I talked about it going into week 3 or week 2, it was like 18 and a half. It ended up going off at 21 and a half, but we could have got it at 18 and a half. Do we come back down to a range like 16, 17 and a half receiving yards because of Kenny Gainwell's emergence last week or 2 weeks ago? Or is it going to be up in the 20s again and you consider hammering the under on it?
That's why I kind of like to bounce these things off you, because the way Warren was trending, I felt more comfortable doing it every week. And then just like, of course, the backup, you're like, nobody was less worried about Kenny Gainwell than you. And of course, he has to have his career game. And now we're probably, reintroduced into one of these absurd splits that's tough to predict, especially now if we know that they're even remotely trying to nurse Warren's whatever the hell it was that he was dealing with, and maybe they don't want to pile too much work on him. So I guess I will kind of steer clear of that. We'll see more that come along. Of those donkey charts, are there any that you wanted to specifically bring up that stood out to you?
All right, so there's one game. I talked about this. I even asked everyone in the comments. I was like, tell me if I'm overthinking this. Andy, you got to tell me if I'm overthinking it, okay?
You're overthinking it.
I don't know. You might agree with me here. The Colts are only laying 6.5 at home against the Cardinals this week. I didn't see this when I talked about it yesterday. I just figured they are going to get hammered by the public. Arizona's coming off a loss to the Tennessee Titans, where DeMarcado drops the ball going into the end zone. Another one where Cam Ward inside the red zone throws a miserable interception, which is then fumbled when a guy hits the ground, not touched, and then it's kicked around into the end zone and turns into a Tennessee touchdown. They end up getting that game, the win. Callahan should have not been allowed on the plane, and somehow he's doing a victory speech an hour later. So there's something odd about this. To me, there's always like, you call it a rat game. To me, I call it like and the rat is the best way to phrase it, but it's the fishy line of the week for me. Like if there's one line that's just smells rotten, the fact that the Colts are not favored by more than a touchdown when on the season, Andy, they have outscored teams 163-89. They're the only they beat the Broncos on the final drive. They lost to the Rams because of Adonai Mitchell. The other 3 games they played were never even close. So inside of 7 for the Cardinals on the road smells like a trap.
I was just going to say, I would actually pay. I would pay money to be a fly on the wall with like two 19-year-old guys talking about these games, just to hear like, you see how, you know how bad the Cardinals are? Did you see them lose?
Yeah.
Like, I live for that. I was on an elevator recently on the way up. One kid had out DraftKings, one kid had out FanDuel, and they were just trying to build something for a Monday night. And he literally, there's nothing better than this. I just hear he goes, all the Niners receivers are out. He goes, they got nobody. It's going to be all McCaffrey. They both start clicking McCaffrey props. I was fucking, like, I wanted to burst out laughing. It was the two young guys in shorts and, like, sandals on an elevator talking about how the receivers are out. It has to be all McCaffrey. The funny part is, it was all McCaffrey. They ended up winning, and they're going, see, I told you. Do I know football?
Well, here's the thing. Which is, dude, those type of people. And look, they're having fun. I have nothing against it at all. But like the idea that the most obvious thing is the right bet. I had under 7.5 receptions on McCaffrey, who was under 7.5 receptions until overtime.
Yeah.
So I lose too. You know, they get to count their winnings at the end of the day, and that's what makes all of this fun. But
and then what do they always say? Maybe I should work for Odd Shopper.
Dude, by the way, 7.5 receptions, you had to bet the under on 7.5 receptions. Like, on principle alone, that's an insane number. So I know exactly what you're saying, man. And people will look at this and they will go, and you know, like you said, maybe the Colts just win by 30. That's also very possible. But 6.5, and now me seeing that 80% of tickets are on the Colts, it kind of does, like, it at the very least, it validates what we're thinking about here.
Man, they all look fishy, man. The Bills going on the road.
Cowboys too.
And Cowboys, they came through for everyone last week. People took them to crush the Jets. They crushed the Jets. Remind me who they have this week?
They have the Panthers in Carolina.
Oh, man. The Rico Dowdle game?
What's that?
The Rico Dowdle game?
It might, dude, the revenge game. If Chuba's out, that'll be fun.
It's so funny. It's so fun. Nobody would have said this a couple of weeks ago. Like, the revenge, just the way it lines up. He has 200 yards, and it just so happens to be before he plays the Cowboys, and now the Rico Dowdle narrative, which is pretty hysterical.
So do we just hammer the under on Rico? I mean, that's got to be the play, right? Right. What do you think here's a fun one. If Chuba Hubbard's out, what do you think Rico Dowdle's rushing prop is going to be, coming off a 200-yard game, facing a bad Dallas team, and then all the public sentiment clearly being on the revenge narrative?
73.5.
Wow. I mean, if it's 70, that's a big number, man. And you know the crazy part? People are going to see 70.
Tony Pollard, I've been tracking. I don't know why. I have no clue why. But I was tracking him in these early weeks. They're the worst team ever. His rushing prop still last week was like 70, 75, 77. He's done nothing to earn that.
You're right.
So I'm just looking at, as they're playing the defense, Breece Hall was gashing them last week. Plenty of players have gashed them so far this season.
No, you're right.
And they see Rico Dowdle coming off of a 200-yard game. You know, Bryce Young doesn't like to throw the ball. If I was going to take an over for Dowdle, Bryce Young's been checking it down more this year than he did last year. So that's something I would be way more inclined to where they leave that at like 14 or 15 for Dowdle and do that than take the rushing, because people saw how, crazy his game was on the ground last week.
I think 73.5 is a nice. I think that's pretty accurate. It might even be a little higher. Who knows? But let's keep that one in mind so we can discuss it next week. The other spot, I do like the Bills. I did bet them at -3.5. But the opposite of my thinking here on the Patriots with the Saints is kind of true with the Bills. You're coming off a really brutal home loss as a big favorite, and now you're facing the Falcons. If the way that this could go sideways for me is if Bijan Robinson just dominates time of possession, right? Because the Bills' run defense has been a problem. But if it becomes, but also James Cook is really good. If this comes down to a Michael Penix Jr. versus Josh Allen style of game, Penix Jr., I cannot imagine he stands any chance in a spot
My
like this.
God.
So,
That's
feel
one of
like
those. Yeah, when you line it up and you look at it, it's like Penix was shut out by Carolina, correct?
Yeah. And then they came back and won the next week.
I know, but it's just
but
like,
still, no, I know. I get it. Like Josh Allen is miles better than Michael Penix Jr.
and yet the Bills could. I know it sounds crazy. The Bills could lose.
Sure, they could. They're only 4.5-point favorites. I like them though.
The only other thing maybe I was thinking about asking you about was I did see Davante Adams. Man, many times we've talked about that target share between those two players. He easily went over, I think, 75, 80 yards in the last game. And he's just one of these guys. It's like, is he really just going to get locked down all game long?
Not against Baltimore.
How you feeling about that? Is that one you're all right with, or am I missing something?
BetMGM does have a lineup on Davante Adams for this week. It is 63.5. You know, I'm glad you brought this up because it just feels like eventually Davante Adams has to have himself a game. This to me is the latter spot, Andy. Like this isn't a spot where I just want to bet the 63.5. If I'm going to do it, you say, all right, you know what? Baltimore's defense is in shambles. They're 8-point home dogs against the Rams this week. If I were to do something like this, I think it would probably be a Davante Adams 100-yard ladder in a spot like this. To me, that makes the most sense. I want to get to some exposure to that this week because the Ravens are gutted. And if Adams does have a big game, it's not just going to be like 65. He has a real shot of going crazy.
Are you okay with it even in the low 60s?
Yeah, I'm saying, I mean, I am, but I would ladder it to 100. Like if I'm betting Davante Adams, this is the type of spot against this defense where I'd probably just ladder it.
All right, you heard it
Puka
here.
Nacua has a 99.5-yard prop right now.
99. So I guess Davante Adams it is. We're going to look for some of those other numbers. I want to see what Brashard Smith's receiving is. I want to see what Rico Dowdle's rushing is. Hopefully by the time this comes out, you guys will see those and how close we got to it. But that concludes week 6. Dave and Dan, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Dave, it's fun. Keep working on your, diluted job title to kind of present to people, to present to your wife's family members and all your in-laws.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Just really just kind of I had a friend who he used to tell me that he blurred the dates of everything where it's like, wait, you were with that girl? No, but that was before I went out with, he blurred the dates by using like these generic benchmarks of before and after. So that's kind of what we have to do with this job sometimes. And unless there's anything you want to put out there, feel free to gas yourself up to the absolute maximum, and then we'll be back next week.
No, of course not. But I did gas you up today on one of the shows. I said, Andy's one of my go-to NHL guys. So I'm sending people your way too, brother.
I don't know, man. I don't know if you want. I'm not. I told somebody, you upload a picture of me on social media, all of a sudden you could have 1 million. Kylie Jenner will have her lowest viewed picture ever if they just upload me. I'm like the opposite of kind of like Miracle Grow. I'm Miracle Ruin, and I can do that to anybody's account. So I don't know if you want to start talking about me too much over there, but it is very much appreciated. We will be back with you guys next week for week 7. Dave and Dan, looking forward to it. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. We will talk to you then.